Now we come to the question and answer session. Please submit your questions. Our panelists include Professor Tin Nguyen, PhD, President of Vietnam Democracy Center, Mr. Oanh Phat of Thắng Nghĩa Forum, Dr. David Tran, MD, Coordinator, Alliance for Vietnam's Democracy, Professor Hung Phan, President of the Vietnam Human Rights Bill Advocacy Committee. Let's begin with our first question. And please go ahead and place your question in our Q&A box. How should we deal with the rising atrocities like China and Vietnam? Will any one of you want to take on this first question? Dr. Tran, would you like to take this first question?
I think it begins with having the right perception. I think that about 2,500 years ago, a very wise man in Asia said that in order to have the right action, you have to have the right perception. And I think we're dealing here with a totalitarian system of government, talking about Vietnamese and Chinese, and it wants to control the people, and in the case of China, to take over the world. And we don't want the same thing. I mean, the free world, we don't want the same thing. So it's not a competition. We're not competing with them for this purpose. And we didn't compete with Hitler, and we're not competing with Xi and Putin. They are our enemies. So you also have to know your friends. I think the difference between autocracy and democracies is also in the prefix. It's the people. We have to make efforts to engage with the 1.4 billion Chinese people and 100 million Vietnamese people. They have to know that we are with them in their struggles for freedom and human dignity. We also have to use all the tools that are available to us. I think that to engage the people, we have at our disposal weapons that are these autocratic regimes that are more afraid of than nuclear weapons. Is the free and open internet, and we have to make it accessible to everybody through satellite internet, for example, and other technologies. I think it's expensive, but the benefits are huge. You know, it's not just for democracy, but it's also for health, economic, and all kind of other reasons. And after we make it free, we have to make it open. Our problems with having freedom or not having freedom of expression in Vietnam is not just the Vietnamese government or Vietnamese authorities. It's also American companies like Facebook and Google, and they're doing a very good job at helping the authorities there censoring the content and cracking down on dissent. So, and there's no reason why that should be allowed.
Thank you, Dr. Tran. We have another question. How can we advance Vietnam's democracy? Mr. Who would like to take this question?
Yes, this Tim Nguyen, I would like to answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Having a constitutional framework for a democratic Vietnam is important because it gives a vision of what democracy can bring to the people. Building alliance with other like-minded organizations and entities, Vietnamese and internationally, as the threat of communism and totalitarianism is worldwide. So its response also needs to be cooperative and international. COVID-19 and the ongoing genocide have shown that the world is no longer the same. We can only be safe if every one of us is safe. That concludes my answer to that question.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Nguyen.
I think I can add to that.
Yes, please go ahead.
I think there are at least 3 areas to focus on. First, pushing for protection of human rights. Here in the US, it can be accomplished through legislation and sanction. Travel bans and financial restriction are important measures. Second, promoting political participation to free and fair election. Declaring election illegal or questionable have powerful consequences. Words are very important. Why call somebody president when he was not really elected by the people? Through internet technology, allow for survey and referendum that can have participation of millions of people. And this go back to the free and open internet discussed before. And third, fighting corruption. These autocrats want power, but they also want money. And they want their children to go to Harvard, Oxford, or any prestigious institution in the West. They don't leave money in Vietnam because they know they are on borrowed time. So they send their money overseas. So if we seriously want to fight corruption, we can confiscate the money and give it back to the people. It's blood money. It's their blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pham. We have another set of questions, and they are individuals free to practice and express their religious faith in Vietnam? Professor Pham, would you like to take that question?
You on mute, Professor Pham.
Sorry. Yes. Everyone can hear me? Yes. So first of all, I'd like to talk about Vietnamese people. And everyone should know that Vietnamese people see religions as part of Vietnamese traditions. And since the 1975, when the communists took over the South, they banned all the forms of religions and used spies and tapped the phone of priests in church and bronzes in Buddhist temple. Okay, and so far, religious freedom remains restricted, and we know that all religious groups and most individual clergy members are required to join the party controls. So it means what? The state will control every activities of religions. And based on the 2016 law of belief and religion, the CBV reinforced the restoration requirement and allow extensive state interfere with religious group, internal affair, and gay authorities broad description to paralyze unsanctioned religious activities. All unregistered and unrecognized religious groups face routine harassment, include violence, criminal charges, and property damage. That's how they control the religions in Vietnam right now.
Staying with the freedom, I would like to have a follow-up question with you, Professor Pham. Yes. Do you think there's a freedom for non-governmental organizations, particularly those that are engaged in human rights?
You asked the same questions. I think there's no freedom for those activities, especially for human rights organizations, generally banned, and those who engage in any advocacy that authority think is a hostile risk imprisonment. And according to Freedom House report, criminal prosecutions and violence against activists persist in 2020. And last year, in July, a court imposed lengthy prison term on 8 activists who had planned protests calling for the protection of constitutional rights on National Day in 2018. And also in July, a court sentenced a prominent pro-democracy activist to 8 years in prison for his anti-government posts on Facebook only. So the way is the way, the government control the only human rights activities right now in Vietnam.
There's a couple more questions. I would throw it out for everybody to answer this that's in the panel. What is the best way to fight corruption from within Vietnam? CSOs in Vietnam faced extreme censorship and fear for speaking out against corruption for fear of retribution. Are there ways for CSOs or individuals to address the issue of corruption in Vietnam? So basically it's wanting to see who would like to take this. Anybody raise their hands? Mr. Pham, would you like to take this question?
I think that is a very difficult question. It's not for the people from outside of the country to know the detail of what involved, because the corrupted people are also most likely the powerful people. And if you're not careful, you will be silent one way or the other. So I think the best still, if those abuses can be somehow sent out to the free world, that can be broadcast secondhand, that will be most effective and safe for people who are suffering or who want to improve the condition inside Vietnam. That's all I can think of at the moment, but I think that's a very delicate matter. There is corruption in the West also, but it's not so bad and it's not so brutal when it comes to retribution.
Professor Nguyen, how do you think in a constitutional framework, how would that help with fighting corruption in Vietnam?
Well, having a constitutional framework is important because it
provides check and balance.
Yeah, it's a check and balance because, for example, the U.S. have a very fair system for outside people to invest in the U.S. However, as you can see, the Chinese and the Vietnamese companies are notorious for taking over assets in the U.S. by buying up property and any business investment over here. So my suggestion is, even though our constitution is very fair, treat everybody equally, but we need to look into how this money will obtained and how they will use this property, because actually a lot of them use their investment as a way to send their children, their relatives to come to the U.S., taking advantage of our free system, while in the meantime in Vietnam or China oppress their own people.
Thank you. We have another question in the audience. What do you think regional organizations like ASEAN, where Vietnam is a member, could do in support of promoting democracy in Vietnam? How do you think ASEAN can support the advancement of democracy in Vietnam? Any hands on this? Professor Phan, would you like to take a stab on this?
Right now, I don't have the questions for that one. But I think in terms of democracy, we need to have some kind of power of the people, and the government has to think the people is the main purpose for them to support, not to use them as like some kind of basis things for them to do. And right now they have to support their own people, and they have to use this as the fundamental principle to help them, not like to use them as like a slave and to whatever they want to do. In terms of Vietnamese people right now, they cannot raise their voice. They have no opportunities for them to speak up. So that's why, okay, for me, very important for the democracy have to develop, okay, from the basics, the bottom, and hopefully they have to change the system. But in some days, it's very hard to do that.
Thank you so much, Professor Phan. Dr. Tran, did you have your hands raised?
Just quickly, I think that ASEAN hasn't shown to be a good medium for promoting democracy, and I think we've seen that with other countries like Myanmar. But I think that it can still be an effective tool. I think that a lot of the countries, especially democratic countries in the ASEAN, needs to realize that promoting democracy in the region is important, not just for countries like Vietnam, but also for themselves. I think together a democratic ASEAN would be a much better economic and security forum for every countries involved. And I think it makes sense to build a free and open Indo-Pacific when all the people in ASEAN countries are free and their societies are open.
Right. I think we have one last question, and we probably just have time for one last questions. Would any of you have any suggestion for the Summit of Democracy? Dr. Tran, would you like to tackle this question?
Let me tackle that, and then maybe other people can help me out. I think that I think this is just the first step, and I think that a summit like the one that this administration is trying to put together, I think after that there needs to be an alliance of democracies, more than just a summit. It needs to be some kind of organization where other countries can be, other democratic country can be a part of. And I think right now we're dealing with a top-down approach where governments are being asked to come. But I think that if we can combine that with a bottom-up approach, where the people, which is the engine of democracy, through civil societies and organizations, can be involved as the stakeholders. I think there's also needs to have technological support for democracy. And I think we're dealing with China, which put a lot of money into technology to control the people and to suppress the democracy. I think needs to be it needs to be countered. And I think that we need to invest into R&D technologies to help free people and to have a better regulations for technologies like AI and spying equipments, the companies that make spying equipments and surveillance that control people. It needs to be better regulated.
Thank you so much. And I think we are out of time, and we would end with a closing remarks. Thank you, panelists, for an insightful discussion on the advancement of democracy for Vietnam, obstacles and opportunities. So, during the last few centuries, mankind has made great advances in humanity with political systems of democracy, focus on the people's voice and check and balance. A constitution that enshrines that the Communist Party as the sole form of government, a totalitarian regime, annihilates free and fair elections, tramples on human rights and religious freedom, indoctrinates that the Communist Party is higher than God and above all religion. The Vietnamese civilization is grounded on the principle of human rights, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Everyone has a voice. The voices must be heard, not oppressed or silenced. In today's multilateralism world, we speak of freedom of speech, press, association, religion, and self-determination. And human rights is a key ingredient to advance democracy in Vietnam. For our Đồng Bào to enjoy democracy, it begins with free and fair elections, with the right to run for office and the right to nominate candidates with a diversity of ideas and political affiliations. A democratic Vietnam is the very principle on which Vietnam was founded 4,900 years ago. Lastly, we thank the International IDEA for this Global Democracy Coalition Forum. Thank you so much for your participation, and we hope that you have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are, and we hope that you will continue to promote a democratic Vietnam. Thank you.